Foreigners are ruining Medellín. At least that's what everyone says. And if you spend any time here in the city, you begin to realize that all the locals are blaming you and I for the increased price of everything, including food and apartments and real estate. Well, my background's in real estate. My name's John. I have 30 years of investment experience in the US. I also do real estate here within the city. And if that were true, the numbers would prove it. So we're going to discuss that today in Mature Medellín. So let's talk about the numbers, because if the facts are there, the numbers will prove it. I would say all of the mass importation of foreigners started happening after COVID. So starting from about 2019, 2020, there's been a lot of foreigners coming into the city. But you know what? Inflation and real estate prices have been going up way before that. And on average in this area, it's been going up about 8 to 12% per year. And if you look at numbers across, where places like Bejo and places like Medellín, there's a lot of places all around that doesn't have a lot of foreigners. But are those places going up or are they staying the same? Well, we know the answer to that. The prices are going up in those areas as well. So let's take a look at basic economics, because the easy answer is to blame the gringo. You're emotional about it, but is that reality? Because to be honest, we do the same thing in the United States. When things go bad, when the job market's bad, when prices go up, we want to say, oh, it's because of the foreigners that's coming in. That's an easy answer, but it's not always the right answer. So what do the numbers say? Well, first of all, let's take a look at anything to do with price. What determines price? It's supply and demand, right? Why did the oil prices go up? Well, because there's a war going on. They close the Strait of Hormuz, and there's less supply, and so they jack up the prices, right? Let's take a look at the supply and demand of real estate in Medellín. Believe it or not, in 2024, there was about 20% less permits that were issued to new developers. There was about a 40% less new construction of new homes in 2024. And to make matters worse, affordable housing is down by 70%. So supply crunch is real. Supply really just got collapsed. I don't know all the reasoning behind that, but I do know there were some government incentives that were changed, and there were some other things that really affected the supply on that side. That's one part of the supply equation. The other part of the supply equation is so many of these long-term rentals were converted into Airbnb. Now you'll say, hey John, that's the foreigners' problem, right? If there weren't so many foreigners, there wouldn't be so many Airbnbs. And I agree with you. I think there's some truth to that. But you know what? Did you know that Airbnb in Bejo is also going up? I guarantee you there's very few foreigners going to Bejo, okay? So why is that the case? Well, it's because Airbnb is becoming more and more popular. And if you're a homeowner, think about it. If you're an apartment owner like this, and you can rent it out to a local long-term for a year, or you can rent it out weekly, daily, to even to a local, and you get 2x the money, 2.5x the money, wouldn't you do that? Absolutely. So you can blame it on greedy homeowners, or you can just blame it on how things are changing. It's just how life happens to be. So Airbnb has made a big impact on supply as well. Clearly, the supply has dwindled quite a bit. Let me read some statistics for you. In 2022, for every 1,000 households, there were 13.7 new households being created. Guess what that number was in 2024? It was 8.5 in 2024. Huge decrease between how many new homes are being produced for 1,000 people. When you see that kind of a supply crunch dropping by 20 to 40% in all the areas, guess what? Pricing is going to go up. That alone. That's not even counting on the demand side. Now let's address the demand. Do foreigners make a difference in demand? Absolutely. But there's a couple of things to think about here. Let's take a look at the realities of demand. What percentage of foreigners are actually making up the buying pool of Colombia? We know the vast majority of Colombians are still buying the homes. If you speak to most real estate professionals, they'll say foreign buyers are in the single digits, less than 10%. So thinking logically, how can a small percentage, a minority, drive the numbers. We don't. What's driving the numbers is mainly the local Colombians. It's something that Colombians don't like to admit, but that's what's the reality. Now, do foreigners make an impact? Absolutely. If you take the foreigners out, I think it will definitely impact price, at least temporarily. But the vast majority of buyers are definitely Colombians. We didn't create the real estate market. We just entered the real estate market with you. That's point number one. Point number two, if you think about it, for foreigners, for them to qualify for a loan, it's nearly impossible. So we need to buy homes with cash. I know there's a few foreigners out there who's bought with cash. Congratulations, Steve. I follow you on your YouTube channel. But it's very few and rare, right? Number one, it's hard to establish credit. It takes a long time to establish credit in a new country. And for you to qualify for a loan, you have to jump through a lot of hoops and pay a much higher interest rate as well. Almost every foreigner I've ever met, when I speak to them, they bought with cash. And that's the reality. So to be real and transparent, yes, are there foreign buyers in this building? There are. I have a lot of foreign neighbors. But the vast majority are Colombian. Vast majority are Colombian. And that's the truth. That's the truth that nobody wants to admit, but that is the truth. And if you look at reality, here's the supply side being crunched by 20 to 40%. And here's the demand side, the foreigners making up a very small percentage in the big scheme of things. So how could foreigners be driving the real estate prices? We're not, right? That's the reality. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that because it's easy to blame the gringo or blame the chino. But in reality, the market's going to go up. Now, let me use this as an example. We know I mentioned Bejo before, but how many foreigners do you know that live in Bejo? I know very few. It's so few that I don't think it's going to statistically matter. Has prices in Bejo gone up or gone down over the last 5 years? We know the answer to that, right? There's hardly zero foreigner impact in Bejo, but prices have gone up. Okay, let me ask you a second question, a logical question. If all the foreigners left Medellín tomorrow, how would that impact prices of real estate? I do think initially there will be a price reaction, right? But if we look at real estate with no foreigners in the next 5 years, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Medellín will go up or do you think it'll go down? If you're being realistic, if you're being honest, you know prices are going to go up, right? This isn't a foreigner issue. This is a government printing too much money issue. This is an inflation issue. These are macroeconomic issues that doesn't impact because of you or I, right? So that's the reality. Hopefully this video was informative. Hopefully you learned something. You like this kind of content. Like and follow for more.